Hi guys, today we have the great man of God, Pastor James from London is going to join us on Christian Talks, and this is a great blessings to be have on Christian Talks. And in this talk, we are going to share about his testimony, how God did his awesome work in the different ways in his life. So, brother, we warm welcome you on Christian Talks. How are you?
Thank you so much. It's so good to be here. Thank you for inviting me. And yes, I'm fine. I'm good. Thank you so much.
Now, brother, time is to share your testimony.
Whether you can share how you came to Christ.
How I came to Christ. Well, I grew up attending church. I've always attended church. I grew up in a little village just outside of London, so most of us in that village, we went to Sunday school as children. We were taken there by our parents, and I was no different. And when I had grown up, I got a job in London, and so I used to travel to work every day on the train into London. And so I bought a season ticket for the train. Well, it was a season ticket that lasted for 3 months, okay? And when the time came that the ticket had run out, it had expired, I didn't bother to buy a new ticket. I just didn't have time, couldn't be bothered. So I just kept waving my out-of-date ticket at the ticket collector day after day, and he seemed happy with that. And then one day he stopped me and he said, "Your ticket's out of date. You're committing an offence." Well, I had to pay a fine in a court, which made me very ashamed. Even more so because my father was the local policeman, and so that was even worse for me. Dear. So, what I realised was, having had to pay this fine and having been caught, that I realised that even though I'd been going to church all my life, it had made no difference to the way that I lived. Well, at about that time, I was invited to attend a big church conference at a place in London called the Royal Albert Hall, big concert venue. And I went along because I'd been invited, and I heard a man speaking on the stage about Jesus. And he said that just going to church would not make you a Christian. Just being in church doesn't make you a Christian, any more than standing in a garage doesn't make you a car. Just being in the place isn't what counts. Just being religious made no difference at all. He asked the question from the stage to all of us in the audience. He said, "Is your life falling apart right now? Do you want to start a new life with someone to help you to really change and find a life with purpose and meaning?" And he said that was possible if you invited Jesus into your life and choose to follow him as your Lord and Savior. Well, I knew that this is what I really needed, because I realized all those years of going to church hadn't made any difference to me, to my decisions that I made and how I lived my life. So I decided, yes, I need to start again. And I need a relationship with Jesus Christ in my life. So right there and then, I asked Jesus into my life. As I stood there in the Royal Albert Hall, I asked Jesus into my life. I asked him to come and give me a completely new start. And I said, if you do this, if you forgive me and wipe the slate clean and help me to start again, I will follow you and I'll follow your plan for my life. And as I prayed that prayer, it was as if a huge weight was lifted off me.
Wow.
And I walked into that building as a churchgoer. I walked out of that building as a believer in Jesus Christ, born again. And I realized from that moment on the great difference between religion and relationship. That Jesus did not come to give us a religion.
Yeah.
Jesus came to give us a relationship that changes everything in your life. So that's how I
Yeah.
came to Christ. So I became a Christian.
Yeah, you're right. Could you share with us life after you received Christ?
I would say life after I've received Christ has been a complete roller coaster. There's been ups and downs, but here's I think two things I would want to pick out. Number one is after I became a Christian, a few years after that, my son got cancer, and he very nearly died, and he went through in fact, he got cancer twice. He went through a long battle with cancer. Within that, there were some miracles. Where, for example, an X-ray, a scan rather, MRI scan, showed that there was a tumor filling one of his lungs. So he went in to have an operation to remove the lung, only to find when he got into the operating that the tumor wasn't in his lung anymore, even though the scans showed it was. And they were able just to take the tumor out. And today he still has 2 healthy lungs, which is wonderful. So there have been some really difficult times. But when I became a Christian, I was working in the computer industry. I was a project manager working for a large company in their computer division. And I had no idea what God wanted me to do with my life. But he had great ideas, and he eventually, amazingly, he called me into church ministry to become a pastor of a church. And so I went to college and I got a theology degree and I went into the ministry. But then he called me again and he said, no, what I really want you to do is to launch a church. This is very different. I want you to launch a church where people who are many, many miles away from me can come and understand and find healing and acceptance and find me. And he said, I want you not just to launch that, but I want you to launch a whole network of churches around the world. Wow. So I had no idea how that would happen, how it would work. But my wife and I, we launched that first church. And wow, it's been 30 years of following Jesus in that calling. And in that time, he's grown this. And so that it's Kingfisher, which is the church that I'm the senior pastor of now, is in 10 different countries. And there are thousands and thousands of people who are part of Kingfisher family, which is the organization that I head up. But I had no idea that God would lead me that way. And just finally, because I don't want to take up too much of your time, but when I became a Christian, when I said yes to him in that Royal Albert Hall, there were 2 things about me that were real challenges, I think, for God. Number one, I could not speak publicly. I would get tongue-tied. I can't do it. I cannot speak publicly. And number 2, when I did speak, my language was terrible. I was quite a profane person. And so I think God looked at this and said, wow, I'm calling him to lead a worldwide network of churches, to have a speaking ministry around the world. And A, he can't speak publicly. And B, when he does speak publicly, he uses terrible words. So overnight, the first thing that God did in my life when I became a Christian was he enabled me to speak publicly, and he cleaned up my language. He gave me a whole new vocabulary. It was amazing overnight. And that was all because he wanted me to be a public speaker for him. So he chooses the most unlikely people, the people who would be, they'd think I'm the last person in the world that God would choose. But he chooses the foolish people. He chooses the weak people to shame the wisdom of the wise. And so that's been my experience for all the 40 years that I've been a Christian. And we started Kingfisher Family 30 years ago. And today, as I say, we are all around the world.
That's amazing, brother. We really enjoyed your testimony, and we trust it will be so fruitful and helpful our brothers and sisters. And when we do pray that God give us a wisdom and clarity of thoughts there to understand this testimony, and we believe that it will be helpful for everyone. So thank you so much for joining us on Christian Talks and this great fellowship. We really enjoyed it. Thank you so much. God bless you.
God bless you. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's been wonderful getting to meet you, and thank you for your time. God bless you. Thank you.